Does anybody out in the great mathematical world know what area in math stands for? And when we use area? Sometimes you use area, sometimes you don't use area. I'm sure your parents use area at some point in their life. Isabel, area, what do you think?
It's the area inside a circle. Or, okay.
Okay, yeah, but you just used the word to explain the word. You said area inside the shape, yes, but how would you explain that? If I had no idea area, what would you tell me area? Well, let's go with this. What do we measure area in? How about this? If I asked you how big my room is, or what the area of my room is, what are you going to tell me?
I don't know.
Lance doesn't know. Come on, you fifth grade. Jaden?
It has 30 tiles by 25 tiles.
It would be. So you're saying tiles.
Yeah.
So that would tell somebody how many tiles it is.
Yeah.
Well, you're actually kind of right, but we don't use the word tiles. We actually use, Charlie, squares. We measure area in squares. Not rectangles, but squares. Okay, so you have to know how big the square you're using is, because there are different size squares. We could measure something in square centimeters. Now let me tell you, a square centimeter is a centimeter by a centimeter. That's about 1 square centimeter. And by the way, rather than writing the words square and centimeter all the time, you could just do this. 1, put the label, and then put a 2 up there. It looks really official. That's 1 square centimeter. Okay. What would be something I would measure square centimeters in? Think about what a square centimeter would be. It's pretty small. You might tell me the area of a piece of paper would be maybe how many square centimeters. You wouldn't do the area of this room in square centimeters because there would be a lot of them. Okay, because we can change that because square centimeters are awful small. We could measure something in square inches, and this would be about 1 square inch. And it's called a square inch because it's an inch on each side. A square has to have equal sides. Then you could do like Jaden said and tell me in my room here, if you look at these tiles, I wouldn't call them tiles, but they are squares. And anybody know how big those squares are? They are, each one is 1 square foot. 1 foot squared, because if you took a ruler and put it down there, it would measure exactly 1 foot by 1 foot, if you have your ruler there. Each one of these is a foot by a foot. Okay? And that's, by the way, if somebody asked your parents what size the house you live in is, if somebody asked your parents how big your house is, it is always given in square feet. Okay, and we probably don't have any idea how big, what a normal size house would be in square feet, but I'll give you a little indication here. Let's just talk about this. Talking about the size of this room. How big is my classroom? How many square feet do you think my classroom is? Just taking an outside guess. Who's got a guess from Elijah?
35 times 35.
Well, to give me the guess is what that is. I was asking for the guess. Somebody give me the guess and the guess and the guess and the thing there. Lance? 280 square feet. Sounds like big, doesn't it? Nobody else has a guess? How many, but just think of how many tiles do you suppose are in this room? That's all you have to tell me. Brooklyn? 150 tiles in my room. Charlie?
180.
180 tiles in this room. Joe?
72.
72 tiles in this room. Elijah? 600. Now,
Oh.
let me just try to sketch this out. Because Jaden was awful close in his guess as to how many tiles wide and how many it is. My room is actually 30 tiles this way. And if you take away that little corner that's notched out there, and for what we're doing, it is a square in itself. It is 30 tiles that way. Now, for those of you that said 180, listen to this. Well, if I just cut one row of tiles here, this one row of tiles in itself is 30 square feet, because there's 30 of them lined up. If I counted all the tiles in one row, there's 30 of them. But I have 30 rows of those 30.
900.
Right, so really the answer is 30 times 30. There are 900
I was the closest.
squares in this room. Okay?
Yeah.
And that is, interestingly enough, let's say I just have a piece of paper here, and most of your piece of papers are 8 inches, they're actually 8.5, by 11 inches. If I asked you in square inches, how many inches squared your piece of paper is, you could spend your life drawing all these squares. In other words, you could cut this into 8, you could go 8 inches this way, which would look like this. You'd go, okay, boom, straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down. And then you could cut it into 11 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And you could sit down and count every one of those squares, which means you have either 11 rows of 8 or 8 rows of 11. Or the simple way to find area would be to do what? Here is the key of today is to multiply two sides together, which we call the length times the width. And in math, whenever you see this sort of formula, usually it looks like this. Area equals LW. And as a little side note, if you have a rectangle, how do you know what side is the length and what side is the width? Kate?
The width is shorter.
Yep.
than the length.
That's exactly it. Length we usually call the longer side, and the width is usually the shorter side.
No.
Or the W shortened side. So here is the question they're going to ask you here. Oh, there we are. Right out of the book, we've got a square that is 3 inches by 4 inches. If you see this problem on your paper and it asks you to find the area, what are you going to do first? You're going to draw this on your paper. You're going to write 3 and 4 down there so you know what it is. And then because I gave you the formula, what was the formula I just gave you? You need to write this down. Area equals length times width. And then you can just fill in the blanks. Area equals 4 times 3. So area equals, now here's the kicker, kids. Here's where some people get lost here. The area of that square is not 12. The area of that is not 12. If you told me the area of that's 12, I'd say, you're wrong. The area of that is, Brianna? Nope. 12 inches is a ruler. The area of that is Isabel?
12 square inches.
12 square inches. Or you can just write it as 12 inches squared. 12 inches and 12 square inches are completely different. This is 12 inches. 12 square inches means that you have an inch by an inch by an inch, you have 12 inches that are all squares, a square inch as opposed to a inch. Okay, area must always be labeled in square inches, always. By the way, back to our other conversation there. So you notice how big my room is. Knowing that my room is 900 square feet, and some of you live in bigger houses and some of you live in smaller houses there. About how big would you say is an average size house in square feet? An average size house in square feet that I would say, in my guess. Jilly, might have to find a different place for you to sit because I don't think it's working that you two are together. There's a lot of chatting over there. An average, Drew? 2,000 or 3,000 square feet. Let me write that down. 2,000 or 3,000 square feet. Laney? 2,500 square feet. By the way, houses have grown immensely since, well, probably in the last 40 years. We're kind of a society that likes to have a lot of room. Back, like when probably my grandparents or even your great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents, quite often they just had like one bedroom for like 4 or 5 kids. They kind of made do with a lot smaller. Now we have a bedroom per person, we have a bathroom per person, we have a living room, we have a dining room, we have a great room, we have a playroom, we have about 18 different rooms. Back then, I think our great-great-grandparents would look at some of the houses we have and say, wow, do you really need all of that stuff? Because anyways, back to this. Charlie?
8,000 square feet.
8,000 square feet? Lance? 2,750. Emily? 2,800. Looks like most of you have a pretty good idea. Most houses, I would say, most of them, you know, probably a relatively small house is probably about 1,200 square feet. I mean, that would be probably just 2-bedroom house, if you know, something that retire people. 8,000 would be somebody said a mansion. That would be very large. You'd have to be living in something incredibly big. You know, most of them fall between these. Matter of fact, you go ask your parents tonight how big your house is. They'll probably tell you how many square feet it is, depending on where you are and what you live there. Lainey?
My mom's room is connecting to a nursery, and we're closing that up. So it's gonna count as another room.
It's gonna count as
But
another
it's still
room.
gonna be the same.
You should go through your house and count how many rooms you have in your house.
6 bedrooms.
You have a 6-bedroom house?
6 bedrooms.
4 tomorrow.